We are storing data in cloud storage bucket, it is encrypted. We are storing data in cloud SQL, it is encrypted. We are storing data in BigQuery, it is encrypted. So whatever data we store within Google's, in any of its storage services, those data are encrypted at rest. That means the answer would be any GCP storage services, no specific storage service. In fact, you can't opt out of this encryption. You can't say Google, hey Google, I don't want encryption. I want to store my data as it is in cloud storage bucket. Google will say no. Whenever you're storing, it is by default encrypted. Now it's up to you how you manage your encryption. You can give me the entire process of managing encryption, starting from managing those keys, storing those keys, or you can use your own logic to to store those keys, or maybe to rotate those keys, to manage those keys, whatever it is. But the data should be always encrypted at the rest. That is default point. Good. What else? Maybe we need to move quickly. Okay, let's check this one quickly. Now I would say there is a recommendation, guys, from Google's side. Okay, Google is telling that whenever you are moving some data from outside world within GCP, I would always prefer to use where it is, yes, storage transfer service. Okay, so my first choice should be a managed service called storage transfer service. Okay, so in majority of the cases, maybe around 90-95% of the cases, we should be using storage transfer service to move data from outside world to GCP, right? Until and unless the bandwidth is very low, or maybe the amount of data is also very negligible, there we can use GCP. But if we try to differentiate between transfer appliance and storage transfer service, is mainly with the bandwidth, or mainly lies with the bandwidth. If we have sufficient bandwidth, we have sufficient time to transfer data on that bandwidth from outside world to GCP, we will always prefer storage transfer service, not transfer appliance. Okay, that's a recommendation. Now, low cost, one way, one time migration, everything remains the same if we have sufficient bandwidth. Got it? But in the question, there is no such limitations on bandwidth. So that's why we always prefer to use storage transfer service. That is the first choice. So that is why we are eliminating this one. I'm coming when to use transfer appliances. Next, data will be frequently accessed from a single region. Now, forget about single region. It's frequently accessed. That means it should be standard storage path. That's it. So I'll be selecting this one. Okay. So that is the recommendation through which we choose option number 3. Now, someone asked me about, or Ritika asked me about why, when to use transfer appliance. Let's say we have 100 MB bandwidth and we need to transfer thousands of petabytes of data in next 5 days. Can we do that? The answer is no. So even if storage transfer service, if the preferred one is the recommended one, but as the bandwidth is very low and the time is very limited, there we can think of using transfer appliance over there. Okay, or else I would recommend, or from Google side, I would recommend to use storage transfer service. Fine. Okay, let's discuss this question and then we can move. Now, from cost perspective, I would say transfer appliance a bit lesser cost. Again, you need to do those calculation like amount of data, the bandwidth, all those calculation comes into picture when we use storage transfer service over there. But as I told you, like maybe recommendation part we should take care first, and bandwidth as the second one before discussing or calculating the cost. If definitely it's a one time transfer, maybe to some extent, if we calculate the data, like maybe transfer appliance at that point of time should be a bit lesser. But as I told you, recommendation and bandwidth is the most preferred thing that Google asks us to do over there. Okay. Will they allow to pull data from multiple different data sources? Yes, they can do that. That shouldn't be a problem. Okay, let's come to this question, guys. Again, fine. So what's the question? It's interesting one. There is a compliance requirement, and you defined a retention policy. Now, the first question is, what is retention policy? Can we go back to GCS bucket and let me just quickly go there? And here we have a concept called protection. Yes. Yes. Under the protection, we have this retention policy. This one. Okay. Now, retention policy says that if you want objects within the bucket to be retained for next, I don't know, like 10 days, 15 days, unchanged, and no one can able to delete those objects. Again, I'm repeating, I want all the objects within the bucket to be unchanged for the next 10 days, and no one will not even delete the object. They will not even update, edit, change the object. The object should be as it is for the next 10 days. That is where we can apply retention policy, right? So again, if we come back to the question, see, they're telling we have defined a retention policy on the GCS bucket. Okay, so that's the thing. Now let me apply the retention policy. So I go there, set retention policy. Maybe the duration is 10 days, and I click on save. That means now my logic is very clear. I am telling Google, hey Google, I've applied retention policy for the next 10 days on this particular bucket. That means no one will able to delete the object, no one will even able to update, change anything within the object, right? It is purely blocked. Now, mm, the second thing you can ask me, if I've applied retention policy for the next 10 days, and the next day my boss came to me and say, Supreme, can you change the days to 15, or can you change the days to 8? I can say, yes, as I'm an admin, I have an option to edit the retention policy, and I can change it from 10 to 8. Yes, that I can do. Fine. Now, in the question, they are doing one more thing, guys. So I think first part is clear. We have defined retention policy on the GCS bucket, and as an admin, I can edit that retention policy as well. Now, on top of that, they have executed a gsutil retention lock command. Now, I can able to do the same thing in the console as well. This one, I can click on lock. Now, once I click on lock, once I write this name, and once I click on lock policy, now what will happen? Now, even if an admin or a super admin, whoever comes to and tries to edit the object, change to do that. That means at the first stage, Admin has the flexibility to do so, has the privilege to change, to update, to edit this. So that is what they have done. In order to fulfill the compliance requirement, that means they have done the first stage, they also done the second stage by locking this thing. Now the question is, you need to modify some objects from the bucket that did not expire. That means they changes within the locking period. What is the solution? Of lock. So there is no way to even manually remove the lock. There is no way out. We need to wait till the fulfillment of the expiration, till the fulfillment of the duration. So once we have applied the lock, it's done. No one can change it. Is it clear? Everyone? Okay, great. Let's me move on. Thing we have object versioning. Actually, what is this object versioning? Object versioning means you can keep multiple versions of an object. So if I just apply object versioning as on, that means we can keep multiple versions of the same object. So let's have add some object today. I do some changes in that. If it's a CSV file, I do some changes in the CSV file. Next day, it will keep today's version as well as tomorrow's version. So that is how this object versioning works. Okay, and it's a matter of just keeping it on and off. Nothing. Now my next question is, can I apply both this retention policy and object versioning at the same time to a same bucket? Yes or no? Does it add the cost if you turn? Definitely, as you are keeping the multiple versions, it will add cost over there. Even the one who created the law can't change it. Yes, exactly. The person will not even change the thing. A couple of years, no. That is the question. Retention policy applies to all version, because my question is, can I keep both the things same in the same time for the same bucket? Guys, all of you are telling yes, but I would differ and say no, because see, I have just told you retention policy means I can't delete the object, I can't even update the object. Now, if I don't have an option to update an object, what is the purpose of applying object versioning? Right, because object versioning means if I update an object, it will keep the previous object as it, and it will create another object with a version. So as I don't have an option to do any changes, do any updation, what is the purpose of using object versioning? Right? So if we don't have any option to apply object versioning on, if we apply retention policy, then Andy, there is no such question of keeping versioning all those versions as locked in the same bucket. Okay. So is it clear, guys, on this part? Why both are mutually exclusive? Object versioning on means no retention. Retention on means no object versioning. Right? Okay. You all agreed. Again, I am. Anyone have raised their hand? Okay. Why? Again, I am tweaking my answer only. See, I am able to keep both the things on. Then also I can add some reminder, whatever it is, and I can turn on object versioning. No problem. See, object versioning on, as well as I've applied retention policy. Now, how it is happening over here, guys? The concept that I told you, that was active maybe in before 7 or 8 months. Now Google has shifted the concept of retention policy a bit, where Google is saying that retention means you can't delete an object, but you can modify the object. So I I, I stick with your answer now, because that is what Google is telling us. Google is saying that earlier definitely both are mutually exclusive, but now I am giving you one more additional concept, one more permission, where even if you apply retention policy, even if you log it with retention policy, you definitely you can't delete the object, but at some point of time you can edit the object, you can update the object. And as you can able to update the object, you can make or you can keep object versioning as on. And now I can tell you the answer, yes. If we have multiple versions on the bucket, definitely for all the versions, retention policy should be there. Okay, whatever object stored, if it's a multiple versions of the same object, then also we should be applying our retention policy. A bit confused, guys? Is it clear now? Earlier they were mutually exclusive, now we can apply both the things. Now again, now in the next stage is from exam point of view, what should we keep? Now guys, I would say you go with the current concept, because PC has just changed. They have just changed their exam syllabus, so now definitely they will apply this newer concept. So I would say go with the newer one. But just for information, this that was earlier, that was what the thing between these two, so don't get confused. Do we need to minimal application for each versions, or no, we are see, Praveen, you are get confused. We are applying retention policy at the bucket level, right? That means whatever objects are there in the bucket has that particular property intact. No worries. Will the name change if we do versioning? No. It's not a change of the bucket name. Object name, definitely object name, to distinguish different versions, we should have some changes on the object name. Definitely that will be. Okay. Is it clear now? Great. So let's now move on and see what left with GCS bucket. Majority of the part is already covered. So I'll come back to GCS bucket, guys, once again. But let's just discuss a bit on symbol direct that we have. Okay. So then I will come back to GCS bucket once again with some more concepts. So as we have already tackled some of the concept of symbol direct, let's now explore the role of this professional cloud architect now in terms of provisioning and deploying a solution within Google Cloud, and how they cope up with those challenges. Now, guys, as a professional cloud architect, you need to understand what are the different cloud computing services available with us, how to configure them, and most importantly, how to select the right service for the tasks that is at in your hand, right? So we have already discussed last week, and we have already chosen networking, compute, and storage resources for simple redirect cloud solution. Right now, today we will go a bit deeper and find out how to use those resources optimally for simple direct needs. Now, it is important to understand, guys, the scope of configuration choice that you'll be making as a professional cloud architect. That choice will determine the best use of those resources that are available in Google Cloud, right? Now, it often helps to start at a like broader approach and then decide what product to use. The thing that we did in the last module, right? We start with maybe GK, then maybe we convert to Cloud Run, or maybe intermediate step as GK. So those things we already discussed, right? Now, next, we need to zoom in and focus on other products as well, different services, different practices, and then we can decide the best implementation part. Although many architects are guys competent with many technical areas, but we should be knowing the exact broader, the exact line of like because guys, you are not an implementation engineer or data engineer. Now, why I'm telling this thing? Say, for example, we are using Cloud SQL. So that is where we need to understand some concept about high availability, sorry, some concept about disaster recovery, about backups, how frequently we need to do those backups, all those things. But probably we will not be designing a database schema, right? Designing and configuring the database schema is more appropriate to a data engineer or an implementation engineer. So we should be mainly, or I would say we should not focus on configuring those decisions until unless like you serve the same role, right? So there should always be a line separating where like your competency ends, your area of expertise end, and someone else do that part for you. And here is an example of exactly that for a simple direct. Previously, someone had decided to go with some, I would say, suboptimal decisions about DNS, and they resulted in a high latency for some communication, right? And obviously, as an architect, you should first of all talk uh, to them, take their feedback. Maybe you can do some take some feedback from the customers as well, and instead of just trying to lift and shift the current solution when migrating to GCP from on premises, you can think out of the box. You should first find out, or you should take some decisions like should how should we optimize this thing using GCP resources, right? So for example, by using global load balancer, by using custom VPC, where you can able to create subnets in some selected region, maybe not everywhere, right? As Google is allowing you to create subnets in every region, we will not be doing that thing. We will take some decision. We will enforce technically by saying or by asking someone, please do not use default VPCs, because default VPCs will create subnets in all the region. Maybe please do not use VMs with external IPs. This is less secure. Please do not create resources in the region that we are not willing to use. So you should have some technical way to ensure that our decisions that we make as an architect will somehow enforce in the practice, and those are also the best practices, right? Now a quick question, guys, can you tell me which service or how we can make it happen that someone is being enforced of creating a I don't know, like uh, VM without external IP, or they will not create um, default VPCs, right? So we as a professional cloud architect, how we can enforce someone to do those things technically? What is the way out? I am policy? No, it is another policy, but it is org policy. Yes, and it's organization policy through which we can enforce someone to do that best practice thing. Great, right? So for simple direct, we might set similar type of thing what we can see in the slide, right? To improve the latency issue. So that's the networking component should be created to those regions only where that like we want to do. So this is an optimized uh, configuration optimization process, I would say. Now, guys, these are the different constraints that we apply based on the use cases. So I've seen some of those constraints on in the exam in terms of question. So it's a good idea to understand these things. A good idea to learn this thing and find out what are the best practices that you will definitely try to implement in your organization, like restrict external IPs from your VM. You should not have default VPCs when a new project is being created. We are okay with service account definitely, which are good, but it's not good to create service account keys, right? Definitely for security reason. And when we are creating a Cloud SQL instance, we do not want anyone to expose it with those public IPs, right? So those are really like security based practices that you should be familiar with to some extent, not only because you might get some question, but it's because they are very very useful in your practical perspective as well. Okay, fine. Now before moving to the next part of our discussion, that is the GCS bucket, let me check how an architect would think about another configuration choice, right? So this time for a symbol direct system that decided to store videos and drone based deliveries for review and future analysis, right? Now you looked at and find that definitely cloud storage is the better choice because of its like scalability, its ability to reduce cost, it's the cheapest thing. We can think of applying storage class at certain point of the life cycle, and we can able to store those unstructured data over there. But we will not stop by choosing the storage option. We will go into a bit deeper. We need to decide, we need to validate how many buckets are needed, how to arrange privileges for those buckets, how to arrange storage classes for those buckets to optimize the cost, how to automate the data retention thing. So, or how to use life cycle policies over there. So, this is not just saying we use this service for you and it's all good, but it's also about making a technical decisions around the service that you choose, right? So hopefully that makes sense, guys. That is what our task would be as well. Fine. So let's move to the next part of our discussion today. And I think we have already discussed some of the option within GCS bucket. We have discussed about retention policy. We have discussed about object versioning, lifecycle policy, and someone is asking about object level or granular level retention policy. That is where we can use object hold. So object hold is a concept over there through which we can apply object level retention policy, right? The process is different, but retention policy is at the bucket level, object hold is at the object level. Similarly, I am